Okay, good evening. Tonight we will hold a public hearing to present the 4-day in-person student instruction plan. And today it's in the district administration building. Zoom. Google form was created to submit comments pertaining to this meeting. In the format of the meeting is a live presentation from the superintendent and assistant superintendent. And then at the end of that presentation, I'll read the comments. If we think some of the comment questions will be addressed during the presentation. Those that are not, we will get answered at the end. At this time, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Connor and Assistant Superintendent Mr. Carter.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to come to all of you this evening and talk about our in-person instruction plan, which we will start tomorrow. I'd like to give you a brief history. We've been meeting the last 3 or 4 weeks on Wednesday nights in the committee to talk about reopening plans and getting everyone back to at least 4 days a week. And lo and behold, on April 9th, about 5 o'clock, we received something from SED, and that stated that we need to have this meeting we're having tonight before we can roll the plan out. So our committee did meet on April 14th, had a good meeting. We had Dr. Velasco on, kicked a lot of information around, answered a lot of questions, and put this document together. Normally they save the thank yous for the end of the program, but before we get started here, I want to thank Maureen Farrell and Christina Gore, both of them, certainly over the weekend, Saturday, some Sunday, and all day today, worked extremely hard in putting this information together. So with that being said, let's get started. We're just waiting. I can't. Is it up? Does anyone have it? It's getting there. Here it is. It's coming up. All right. Good evening, everyone. And this is Goshen Central's 4-day in-person instructional plan beginning tomorrow, April 20th, 2021. Okay, on slide 1, we had a mandatory survey results. I'm pleased to report that we had an outstanding return in that survey. Looking at the high school, first of all, 55% responded to 4-day in-person instruction. 45 were remote. At Hooker, CJ Hooker, 83% responded to a 4-day in-person, 17% remote. At the intermediate school, 82% were 4-day instruction, 18% remote. And Scotchtown, 86%, 14% remote. Okay, COVID-19 guidelines observance. Think of COVID-19 guidance as an umbrella. And just basically, number 1, the CDC gives its recommendation to state health departments. 2, based on the CDC in New York State, then gives its recommendations to our county health departments. 3, the Orange County Department of Health can either alter these recommendations to fit its residents' needs. 4, school district officials are required to follow the directive of the Orange County Department of Health. Okay. Do we skip a slide? All right, we're going to go back one slide here, just a second. It's important that we point out this next slide, that it shows a high risk of transmission areas. So there are tighter restrictions on schools, and you can see that Orange County and certainly Goshen, being in Orange County, is right smack dab in the middle of that high risk of transmission area. That being said, in elementary schools, students must be at least 3 feet apart in classrooms. And that's because they are cohorts. And it's recommended that 3 feet when possible. But for the most part, our K-5, our 2 buildings, our classrooms are cohorts. So that's why they're allowed to do the 3 feet. In the middle school and high school, however, they can be 3 feet apart in classrooms only if the schools can use cohorting. Well, that can't happen at the middle school, and it can't happen at the high school. So with the high number, we'll go back to that one slide, the high number of students percentage coming back at the middle school makes it virtually impossible to meet that 3 foot requirement. So that's why the middle school will stay on a hybrid model, while the high school, the percentage were just close enough where we are able to do the 3 feet there. So all our 9 through 12 students will be in attendance 4 days a week. Also, the CDC is no longer recommending the barriers. However, the Goshen Board of Education made a huge investment here, along with many, many schools around the state. And we think it's, on a precautionary measure, a good idea to continue with those barriers. So we will have those barriers in all our classrooms, especially at the middle school, or the 2 elementaries in the middle school. Classrooms and learning. 6 feet of distance is required for all grade levels when eating. So anytime these students go to lunch and you talk about a challenging situation, all 4 of our building principals, along with Jim Freeze, our buildings and grounds supervisor, and Mr. Carter, our assistant superintendent, went to great lengths in working this out. So at the 2 elementaries and the high school, eating meals minimum of 6 feet, drinking or all times masks must be removed for, let's see, let me go back on that. Eating meals or snacks, you have to have your masks on, or you can take your masks off for those periods of time. Also, masks can be removed for singing and playing wind instruments, but once again, you have to have that 6 foot distance. Masks will continue to be worn when inside the school building by all students and staff. District will provide extra masks for students and employees. Students will continue to bring their Chromebooks to and from school daily. Students will continue to be encouraged to wash their hands, use hand sanitizer for appropriate hand hygiene. And social emotional learning will continue for all students. If your child is experiencing difficulty, stress, or anxiety, we encourage you to reach out to your counselor and/or school principal. C.J. Hooker Middle School, what's the plan here? At this time, C.J. Hooker is the only building unable to implement that 4-day in-person instruction. We were ready to go until the new guidance was released on April 9th, mandating 6 feet of social distancing for middle school and high school of high-risk transmission areas. Because class schedules are individualized, we are unable to cohort students. Approximately 83% of the C.J. Hooker Middle School students plan to return based on the mandatory survey results. However, this non-survey parent requests and special education accommodations. Let's move to the next bullet. We are investigating ways. It's important for our public to know that we continue to investigate ways to fit our students in a manner that is appropriate for learning. For instance, outdoor tents may be an option, but this requires guidance and architectural approval from New York State Education Department. And I know many of you out there have talked about that. Why don't we just get tents? And we've looked into that. And by the way, if by chance we're able to relax those 6-foot distances and go down to 3, we plan to have tents and other places available so students can at least be accommodated for lunch at the middle school. Social distancing guidelines might change if we come out of the high transmission risk designation and if the Orange County Department of Health changes its guidance. For now, students will continue with their current learning plan, and it's either a hybrid or remote model. Here's what we know about SAS, GIS, and GHS. Temperature checks will continue as students and employees enter the buildings. Families should continue to complete mandatory COVID-19 attestation screenings. Contact tracing will continue to follow the New York State Department of Health guidelines. This is the directive of the Orange County Health Department. Those who may be at risk of exposure will be contacted by our district staff with instructions. The district will continue to monitor its progress via COVID-19 dashboard as required by New York State. And last, the district will continue to report any positive cases in our schools to families via email and the district website. The question's been asked, what about BOCES and CTEC? Well, CTEC will continue rotating its hybrid model. Although they do, according to Bill Hack, our OU BOCE superintendent, they hope to go 5 days starting on or about May 3rd, depending on, once again, the guidelines. AMC Tech students will be bused to GHS and then shuttled to CTEC. They will then be bused back to GHS to attend afternoon classes and bused home on regular routes. PMC Tech students will be bused to GHS to attend morning classes, and they will then be shuttled to CTEC and shuttled back to GHS for transportation home on regular routes. Remote students who opted to take CTEC classes in person will receive transportation to and from CTEC as they currently are doing. Many of you have been concerned about the ventilation. Well, all our equipment has been inspected and repaired. Classroom ventilation units and rooftop equipment were cleaned and filters changed. Units are scheduled to be at least 2 hours before and 2 hours after school. Windows will be open as much as possible. And the good news there is that, we're well into April now, and May always brings nice weather, and we got our fingers crossed for June. So windows should be open. We should be getting lots of fresh air. Outdoor learning will be utilized as much as possible, weather permitting. School meals. All students are eligible for free school meals, breakfast and lunch for the remainder of the school year. Meal pickup for remote learners will continue to be available on Wednesdays in the parking lot of C.J. Hooker. Students will eat lunch in the following locations: at Scotchtown, cafeteria and classrooms; GIS, cafeteria and gymnasium; C.J. Hooker, classrooms; GHS, classrooms. 6 feet of distance is required as per state guidelines for all grade levels when eating meals or snacks or drinking. Masks are not required while eating, but must be put back on when finished. Transportation. Students will sit 2 to a seat from the same household when possible. Masks must be worn at all times. Bus drivers will have extra masks on hand in case a child is in need of one. Monitors will continue to attend specific bus runs that require it as per the student's IEP. And bus drivers will sanitize their buses between bus runs. Cleaning and disinfecting. All classrooms and learning areas, bathrooms, and offices have been deep cleaned. Carpets have been shampooed. Custodial staff will continue to clean, disinfect all areas, handrails, and entryways. Each classroom will be equipped with the appropriate PPE, including a bucket of alcohol wipes, tissues, hand sanitizers, and a few kid-sized masks. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank our building principals. I want to thank our reopening committee, who's spent a tremendous amount of time on this in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I want to especially thank the parents out there who've shown great patience in our efforts and waiting for us to get this plan rolled out. We hope to make it all start and work tomorrow. So I'm extremely optimistic. I thank the public and I thank the Board of Education. At this time, I will turn it back to our board president. We know we have comments and questions from some of the public. Those questions by Mr. Carter, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, and myself, we will answer. Some we will get back to you with. Some are quite lengthy, and we will put that information together. All these questions and answers will be put on our website. So not just the audience listening tonight, but all those out there who read our website, pay close attention to that, why they'll see the same answers that you hear tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. I'll read the public comments at this time. First one comes from Jacqueline McNico. Mr. Carter? McNico. We're waiting on you in my head. As a parent and employee of the district, this is putting our children and staff at risk. We cannot properly social distance in the halls or in some classes. We are exposed during the lunch period. It would be beneficial to wait until September when the students can come back vaccinated. Thank you for your comment. Matthew LaRue. Being in the building every day, the school is not ready for 4-day instruction in large numbers. There have been new cases of students in our building at least once a week for the past month or so. A whole sports team was quarantined and people were sent out of the building today, and all of that during the hybrid model. Classrooms do not have space for large numbers of students to satisfy safe COVID protocols. And with only 9 weeks remaining and Regents exams being optional if students pass their classes, bringing more kids in will do nothing but put students and staff at risk. Students are in a groove and know what is expected of them in the hybrid model. Coming back in will be an adjustment that some are not ready for. We all want a sense of normalcy, but this is forced and the potential problems outweigh the benefits. Better to finish the year hybrid and start fresh in September when more vaccinations can be distributed and more organizing can be done for a new school year. Thank you for your comment. Next one comes from Marie Donardo. My daughter is currently a senior in Goshen High School. I will tell you, COVID has hit my family directly. I have not one, but 2 of my sisters fighting for their life. As they both have COVID-19, I've been in 2 separate hospitals. One is in a hospital in New Jersey, the other is in Westchester Medical in New York. I have personally witnessed the tragedy of this virus, watching my sister fight for her life on life support, and the other one brought to ICU for a vent. It is crucial that schools stay closed because it only takes one individual to spread this virus like wildfire. There is no way social distancing can happen when you have young kids walking halls or in classrooms eating together or driving on a school bus. Keep the students home where they are safe and they're more than capable of doing distant learning. They have done this for over a year now, so I have no idea why the district would allow or want to put students' lives at risk or their own employees. You take the risk of students and employees spreading this virus. It only takes one person for the COVID to spread rapidly amongst others. Keep our students and your staff at home where they are safe. As you already have seen, it's perfectly possible for them to learn from a distance, as you've been doing for a year with no major issues. Why would you damage something that doesn't need to be fixed? To personally witness the aftermath of someone having COVID, it is so traumatic and earth-shattering. I wouldn't want anyone to go through the tragedy we're currently facing. I don't know from one day to the next if I will be dealing with the death of one or two of my sisters. I pray to God they both walk out of the hospital, but this virus has taken over their lungs, and I pray to God for a miracle and they walk out of the hospital. Not sure if I mentioned, one of my sisters fighting for her life was a bus driver for the school district in New Jersey, and we believe 100% that a student gave this to her. So another good point here, you're having kids transport by bus. Why? You put your drivers and other students at risk. See what it did to my sister. She drove for a school district, a bus. If this doesn't open your eyes to see how COVID can spread so quickly, then I don't know if anything will allow you to see the danger of this virus. Please keep our students and staff at home. Keep us all safe. Thank you for your comment. And on behalf of the board, we will pray for your family. We hope they walk out of the hospital as well. Next comes from Jennifer Conklin. I would also like to thank the board and administration for not giving in to the curveball New York State threw at us and working hard to get our kids back. Thank you for your comment. I have another comment from Jennifer Conklin. Since the blind side by New York State that we patiently waited for, I would like to know when and how the district will stand up and fight for the kids to make sure September brings normalcy. Please refer to Port Jervis letter from nurse superintendent standing up to Albany and sending kids to school. Why can't Orange County districts band together and push back? How can the community help? And what is the plan to fight and not sit back and continue to wait? It is now clear it won't be handed back to us, but that we must unfortunately fight for our kids. Dan, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, President Pucci. I'd like everyone out there to know that superintendents continue to meet on a very regular basis. That's the Orange County superintendents. We have sent letters to Dr. Howard Zucker. Our subcommittee of superintendents has met with the Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse and Dr. Gilman to discuss the guidelines and if and when it would be permissible for everyone to return under full-time guidelines.
Thank you. Next comes from Amy Winkler. Yep. Hello. I've also sent an email wanting to post here too. I'm trying to help come up with ideas for all the kids to CJ Hooker to return. How about the Board of Ed room? Number one. Number two, can we rent space from the new library in town? Number three, the bus garage. My daughter has been in CJ Hooker 4 days a week since September because she is full-time. What a huge difference it makes. Grateful for it. We're trying to help all the families in the district by brainstorming. Thank you for considering these ideas. Thank you for your comment and your suggestions. Next, we think we answered during the presentation, but let me read this from Shauna Markevich. How did I do, Mr. Carter? Thank you.
You want to ask Maureen?
Can you please clarify the procedure elementary students will follow during lunchtime? Students have been told that they are to eat lunch with masks on. As per updated guidance, students do not need to wear masks when seated and eating so long as they are appropriately physically distanced. Please refer to pages 3 and 8. Please advise what the current plan is for students, and if masks are to be required at lunch, what is the rationale, as this is not required by current guidance? While mask breaks are strongly recommended. Thank you. Do you feel like we answered that properly? I think we did.
Yes.
Okay. Next is from Joseph Connell. I appreciate the district bringing 4-day in-person instruction back on Tuesday, April 20th for Scotchtown Avenue, Goshen Intermediate, and Goshen High School. I would like to see the district find an option for C.J. Hooker middle school students. I understand the space and social distance challenges, and I know the district wants to bring every student back in person who would like to attend in person. With this shared, the reopening subcommittees had come up with alternative solutions, such as tents and other spaces the district owns or has access to that could serve as classroom space. To fully exhaust every option, I think the reopening committee that last gathered in summer 2020 should be consulted. I've also heard the mental health concerns of isolation that seem to disproportionately be affected middle and high school students, and would like to hear how this is being addressed. What social emotional programs and curricula have been implemented this year in the middle and high schools? Sorry, I fumbled that. I think Mr. Carter would like to.
So most importantly, our middle school and our high school have worked collaboratively from the beginning of the year to properly implement SEL, lessons, activities, and so on. Also, utilizing our clinicians properly to meet with students, to keep tabs on students, to have proper communication with families, teachers, and students. Most of the materials that we utilize are derived from CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Really a very great site with many free materials, high quality materials that are properly vetted. We also use a lot of the materials from the Teachers College Survey Research Initiative and also the International Institute for Restorative Practices. And I want to give a lot of credit to our high school principal and assistant principal, and also Heather Carmen and Bob Syracuse for collaborating so that both buildings are really focusing together, on SEL and these activities. A few of the things that we have going on with this, to properly implement, we have what we call connect and checks every morning at the middle school level, so that our teachers immediately check in with our students upon arrival. Simple things like, thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley faces, frowns, just for our teachers to have those private check-in moments with our students to really get a good feeling for where they're at. This is something that's actually done throughout the day, every period. And those SEL activities and those SEL check-ins and those SEL lessons are actually embedded throughout the day in the periods. These are not, in a 35-minute class period, for instance, these are not activities that last 30 minutes. These are 5 to 10-minute activities with discussion, and there are always opportunities for private discussion thereafter. And again, I would say more importantly, the knowledge that we gain from these check-ins goes directly to clinicians when necessary, so that the proper level of support is provided. We have our health and PE staff also in on this, of course, doing the check-ins, speaking with students, coaches in particular, also meeting with students and athletes. So we really do have a good feeling for the pulse of our student body, not just at middle school and high school, but also at our elementary levels. At the high school level, we also have Miss Lynn Abrams, who I've said in the past is trained in mental health and first aid. And with that, she is a train the trainer. So she has gone out and trained high school staff and ventured down into the middle school. This helps us to better recognize students that are illustrating risk factors and warning signs so that we can really take care of the mental health needs, the social emotional learning needs of our students. There have been various other activities at the high school level, with guest speakers coming in and so on. And again, we rely heavily on our clinicians, our social workers, our school counselors, and our school psychologists to continue those meetings and to develop, that resiliency and that education component for our students to be very well aware of what they're feeling and how to express those feelings. I do feel as though we're doing a very good job with that. And I also know that we're moving toward full implementation of a few of the curricula that you've approved here at board, currently setting up the necessary training so that we have everybody properly trained for those. I think that addresses our SEO. As far as what is mentioned here as health concerns, feelings of isolation, I think that's where that communication piece comes in and expressing those feelings, constant reaching out to families reaching out to our clinicians and even teachers and administrative staff, and with proper communication, I feel as though we are equipped to handle any needs that might arise.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Next comes from Corey Conway. Just a simple question. If the meeting needed to take place before schools could reopen, why not hold the meeting earlier? Why was the reopening delayed to the meeting? Feels like an emergency meeting could have been called. Mr. Connor?
Thank you, President Pucci. What happened here is that once again, April 9th, 5 o'clock on a Friday, we received this information that we needed to have this meeting here this evening. We thought it was real important to get Dr. Belasco, our school physician, to attend our meeting on Wednesday, the 14th. Many questions were asked of Dr. Belasco, and we felt that after we had this session that evening, that we were well equipped in moving forward and could then hold this meeting tonight comfortably and let the public know out there exactly what we were dealing with and how we were going to roll this out. So that's why a little bit of a delay. Trust me, I was all excited about the 19th as well, but starting tomorrow is exciting as well. I just want to say this as well. Speaking with our principals, some of the principals did tell me and informed me that tomorrow, when those kids come to school, it's like a whole brand new year. It's a grand opening, everything from balloons and messages and, the good feeling that's going to exist there. I'm excited. I can't wait to get out tomorrow morning. I hit all the buildings with Mr. Carter. We're going to get around and can't wait to see everyone back. And I know PTOs and faculty and principals have gone to great lengths to really make this an outstanding opening tomorrow. So.
Great. Thank you. Last comment is from Carrie Laviano. It appears as though Goshen is the only district in Orange County to return to school 4 days a week. Other districts, Valley Central, Washingtonville, Warwick, Middletown, etc., are returning 5 days. Students, especially in K-5, need to be in school 5 days a week. This provides the best learning environment and structure that they need. Why is Wednesday still a virtual day? Mr. Carter?
So as it has been mentioned many times, we have had multiple meetings regarding the reopening with the target date of 4/19, which is now 4/20. A part of that meeting, there was large discussion with the differences between 4 days and 5 days. In collaboration with many people sitting in this room and also our GTA president and GAA president, we've discussed, the benefits of Wednesday. And collectively, what we agree upon is that Wednesdays right now are utilized not just for professional development, which is very, very important in our growth and being able to handle our current models of instruction and learning. It also helps us to be better prepared to implement our lessons in multiple manners, such as the hybrid learning experience in addition to the in-person. There are many challenges that we're aware of, and although we've been doing it for a good amount of time at this point, and although we can say that quite a few of us are very comfortable with it, it still brings many challenges that we're dealing with. And collectively, we agreed that allowing our teachers to collaborate on Wednesdays to properly plan and to be on the same page with lessons, activities, things in the lines of SEL and so on and so forth, it was very important to us. It does not mean that this is something we've agreed upon, for the end of the school year. I think we would all agree that we will continue to view our options, continue to weigh out everything. I believe right now our biggest hurdle to overcome is the transmission rate and percentages that do cause some roadblocks. As things loosen up, if they loosen up, I believe we will have more options. And hopefully at that time, we can have a greater discussion of moving into 5 days per week. But as it stands, I comfortably say that this was a collaborative effort and we agreed upon 4 days with that Wednesday, allowing for our teachers to continue to properly plan and collaborate.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add there in some of those discussions is what you said there, is it's not indefinite. I think we'll be evaluating that on a bi-weekly pace and keep on collaborating.
Just, if I could add a comment, I know that some of the school districts that were listed there, superintendents reached out to me last week, and that April 9th guidelines that came down caused most of those districts to pivot. And what I mean by that is they've gone back, middle school, high school, to hybrid. Spoke with the superintendents. They called me and said, how are you pulling it off at the high school? And we had a good conversation about that. Of course, the middle school being a building built, I think, in the 20s and 30s. It's just the 6-foot thing is just impossible, getting it any lower than that. So, but I know many of our districts, because of the change in the guidelines, even as recent as April 9th, they have been in school 5 days, are now pivoted back to the hybrid model. So thank you.
I think one of the comments I want to add on there is even though CJ Hooker is currently still in a hybrid model, I know the superintendent, in consultation with the board, is exploring every avenue we can to be prepared, especially if the guidance does change. And I'm confident that they're working towards that solution.
Just to go along with that, just as early as this afternoon, I had a conversation with our principal at the middle school, Heather Carmen, and she and Jim Freese spent a good part of the day, once again, going through that building. And as our board president just said, if and when the opportunity presents itself, we're going to be ready to go. We're going to open up the middle school to 4 days a week as well.
That's the last public comment. I'd like to turn to the board to see if there's any further comment from the board. Judy?
I'd just like to ask if there's been, I know I read something somewhere, and I just want to know if it's accurate. Has the quarantine rule lightened up at all in terms of who gets sent home if somebody comes down with the school? I read somewhere where
So-
it had been loosened.
Yeah, so I think something I was going to address a little bit later, but I think we can address it now. I think David Shaw is on the call with us, but I think Mr. Shaw has given us recent correspondence as late as tonight
Right. Yeah.
to maybe let us adopt a little bit more narrower scope of quarantine.
Okay, that's what I was.
I think Mr. Shaw is on the call here tonight, and as mentioned to Dan earlier, that maybe we can grab Mr. Shaw and Mr. Belasco together, maybe by even tomorrow. Because I know our nurses are going to want to hear it from Mr. Belasco. So maybe Mr. Shaw, Mr. Belasco, and ourselves can get on the same page before we roll this out.
Okay.
But based on the correspondence today from Mr. Shaw and my interpretation of it, I think it's promising.
It's been just one more difficulty for the parents.
It's been a huge difficulty. It's been a huge barrier to get kids back in. It's just been a huge barrier. It's been confusing to all, including, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Shaw, I think including for the law profession. It's been confusing, and I think one thing that our board has done is follow our professionals. If Mr. Shaw says we can do it, we can do it.
Right.
If Mr. Velasco says we can do it, we can do it. We will not defy professionals. I do not want to put the whole district at risk for any type of financial lack of coverage and going against that. And I think we're all steadfast in that. And I think today's correspondence with Mr. Shaw gives me some renewed great optimism on that front. If I said anything wrong, Mr. Shaw, you can hop in, but.
Said it right.
Okay, I think I'm good.
He's there.
Okay.
Hey, this is Mike. I just wanted to thank the district for, we're not a service provider, right? We're not an internet company. And for what they did the past year was amazing to deal with all the technical challenges that they were confronted with. And just hats off to you guys.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I think that's all the comments for tonight. Do I need to close the public hearing or just close it, or do I need a motion? I'm going to close the public hearing at just around 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the board, the members of the Board of Education for today, Monday, April 19th, 2021. Due to an abundance of caution in regard to the spread of COVID-19 and in accordance with Governor Cuomo's March 12th, 2020 executive order, number 202.1, tonight's meeting of the Board of Education is being held in the District Administration Building and on Zoom and YouTube. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of meditation. Please remember Richard Lafredo, retired science and health educator in the Goshen High School for 29 years. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is privilege of the floor. I think I have 3 comments. First comment comes from Amy Hurley.
Cameron's going. No.
First comment says, hello, I'd like to know why there is an exemption for the 2021 Regents exams for remote-only learners, yet students who choose to go in person are required to take the offered Regents exams. It seems as though in-person students are being penalized for going into school, whereas remote-only learners are not. If the opposite were the case, remote-only learners' parents would be up in arms. Why is a Regents requirement not the same across the board? Or am I able to exempt/refuse the Regents exam for my in-person learner if he passes the Regents course? There needs to be the same requirements whether a student chooses in-person or remote-only learning. Thank you, Amy Hurley. Thank you for your comment. Mr. Carter is going to address that in his report later on. Another question regarding Regents. This also will be addressed by Mr. Carter. Would you please further explain the New York Regents exemption requirements for in-person students? This is from Donna Comby. Would you please further explain the New York Regents exemption requirements for in-person students? If a student is in person the remainder of the school year and will pass and receive credit for the Regents class this year, are they mandated to sit and take the Regents exam, or do they qualify for an exemption? Thank you. Mr. Carter will address that. And Anne Marie Kovacs. As parents of students with hidden disabilities, such as anxiety, ADD, ADHD, autism, and dyslexia, we would like to request that the district reevaluate budget for the following special education programs. Fast Forward, System 44, and Read 180 as proposed in the Pupil Personnel Services budget for 2021-22 at the March 15, 2021 Board of Education meeting. In particular, we'd like the Board of Education to provide evidence-based responses on the following questions. Number one, what are the current success rates of the Fast Forward, System 44, and Read 180 programs? Number two, what is the cost of the above programs, and how does that cost compare to investing in teacher training and certification for other benchmark programs, such as the Orton, Gillingham, and Wilson Reading Intensive? Number three, how many of our K-2 teachers and academic intervention services teachers are trained and certified in the following approaches? Orton, Gillingham, certified, or Wilson Reading Intensive? Related to the Fast Forward program, we asked the Board of Education analyze the research from the National Institute of Health and the U.S. Department of Education behind Fast Forward. Fast Forward is a brain-based computer approach with cognitive exercises that are utilized with no direct instruction and has questionable data at best. Our district needs evidence-based, systematic, sequential, multi-sensory intervention delivered by an instructor certified in that evidence-based method of intervention. As example, Orton Gillingham certified or Wilson Reading Intensive certified are true research proven systems. According to Susan Barton, an internationally recognized expert in dyslexia, Fast Forward will not close the gap for students with dyslexia. They will not bring their reading and spelling skills up to or beyond grade level. We are thrilled to hear that 4 teachers completed level 1 Wilson certification and 3 are continuing on with certification. We are also pleased to hear about the Foundation's Wilson Reading Program training that took place in grades K-3 for phonics, spelling, and handwriting. Finally, we would like to bring to light the current reading program being utilized in our traditional classrooms, Reading Wonders. because it lacks a key phonics component. We have networked with other districts, and the kindergarten curriculum that is highly regarded is by Michael Hegarty. Phonemic awareness, the skills that need to help them succeed. This is a 35-week curriculum of daily phonemic awareness lesson plans developed on a systematic scope and sequence of skills with explicit modeling. These skills should be utilized in every kindergarten classroom and would benefit every student. We have attached additional research and correspondence with experts in dyslexia for the board's records and would be happy to answer additional questions. Thank you for your comprehensive contribution. The board is going to ask the administrators to please give us the information and review that. And we look forward to your contributions.
Will do.
Next on the agenda is the president's report. We went over close contact update. Just wanted to mention the efforts of our Science Olympiad and mock trial teams over the weekend. And I know our fall sports are wrapping up, and I know our boys soccer team is playing, the girls soccer team played as well. And I know football had a good season as well. So congratulate all of them. I think cross country, girls cross country too, right? Boys and girls cross country.
Yes.
I heard they all had great seasons, and we're happy that they're able to get some season in this year. Next on the agenda is the legislative update. Martha?
I really don't have anything to report this evening. I look
Forward to attending the Oxford meeting in May, and I shall report on that.
Right, thank you. Do we need a, do we have, want to do a reminder? Is it Thursday? That's for BOCES.
Oh, yeah.
We need 4 people for Thursday. Want to do a reminder there?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. I'm going to ask one more time, if any of you have any questions about the BOCES budget, please let me know. I will contact Deb Heppis, and our business person, and she will get back to you with an answer. And yes, it's Thursday evening. We have our board election and we have our budget vote at 6 o'clock. So I'll see you all either Zoom or whatever.
Do we need to vote before that? We need to come in? Oh, we can do Zoom. Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for reminding me, Jason.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Pucci. A couple of things. First of all, I too would like to, and I concur with President Pucci, congratulate our fall 2 sports season. Went to many of the games. Congratulations, special thanks to the coaches, the kids, the parents, everyone really worked exceptionally hard in making it work. Number 2, congratulations to a lot of our teams who competed on local and state levels and did extremely well. And I too would like to just congratulate, once again, the coaches, the students, and especially the parents for their support. Other than that, hold on to your hat, but spring sports started today. And it'll be a mad push and rush between now and the middle of June. So the beat goes on. There'll continue to be a lot going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Louise Ling.
Thank you. Most of my conversation and discussion tonight will be later in the meeting regarding budget development. I just have a couple of things that I'd like to mention now. One is you have a claims auditor report before you tonight, or refer those. And the other important note was our internal auditors began today. They began doing the food service fund audit, and they'll be here for the week doing that work. We should have a draft probably in about a month or so. And now I assume most of your questions will be about budget development, which I'll get to later. I have a lot of information to share. If there's any questions about those two items, I'm happy to answer now.
Think we're good.
Thank you.
Look forward to later. Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Personnel, and Technology, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci. Good evening, everyone. A couple of updates. I know that we've touched upon many things this evening here at the public session, public hearing rather. A couple of questions that came in regarding testing will be addressed now. So, as many of you are aware, we have entered the grades 3 through 8 testing window. That did begin today. So we have chosen our scheduled dates for testing. They are all computer-based testing with the exception of science in the near future. With all of the flexibilities that we've been allowed this year by the Board of Regents, by the Education Department, we have chosen to administer session 1 only of the ELA and math assessments. The Goshen Intermediate School will have their computer-based testing session on April 23rd. There are opportunities for makeups through April 29th. With the recent guidance and the need for 6 foot of spacing, 6 feet of spacing at the middle school, it has changed our schedule slightly. So we will now have 2 days of computer-based testing for this ELA examination. That will be on April 22nd and April 23rd with the same makeup window end date of 4/29, April 29th. As we move toward math, we know for certain Goshen Intermediate School will have their math exam, computer-based testing once again on May 4th, makeups through May 14th. And assuming that our spacing requirements do not change at the middle school, the math assessments will be given on May 6th and May 7th. If that does happen to change, we will send out notification almost immediately so that our parents are well prepared for those dates. And we will send out further notification on science. I think it's important to know that I did issue notification through our building principals, Dr. Wentworth and Ms. Carmen. So our families were well informed. And we try to help them to understand all the flexibilities that were allowed for the 3A testing and some of the reasons behind the choices of 1 session rather than 2 and so on. As we move into Regents testing, once again, I did send out notifications to our building principals, Ms. Carmen and Ms. Martin, and we did collaborate a great deal to make sure that our schedules were tightened up and that we were all on the same page with testing. And that letter was rather lengthy with a lot of information in it. The questions that came in, of course, we'll offer as much clarification as possible, and if further clarification is needed thereafter, we do have the FAQ link that we provided, and also I know that myself and our building principals will be able to help further by phone if necessary. The long and short of it is that all students enrolled in a course culminating in a Regents exam, regardless of hybrid, remote, in-person, regardless of learning model, students may be eligible for the exemption from diploma requirements. And our building principals can issue those exemptions to all students enrolled in these classes. However, it's really important to know, in order to be eligible, students must be enrolled in a course culminating in a Regents, and they must gain the credit to pass the course. So you don't get the Regents exemption, the diploma requirement without passing the course. Or remember, you have to reach or meet one of these scenarios. So, or a student could have previously passed a Regents course and unfortunately may not have sat or passed the Regents exam, but intends to take the exam in June or August. If that is the scenario and course credit was earned, then that student may be eligible for exemption as well. And then for our grade 7 or 8 students, if they are enrolled in a Regents course and they're passing the course, it's the same scenario. If they achieve standard, if they gain the credit for the course, they are eligible for the exemption. Once again, our principal can issue the exemption to all students in the Regents courses if they're passing the course. So the long and the short of it, to be somewhat direct with the questions asked, all students are eligible for the exemption. And we would encourage all of our students to sit for the exam because it is an important part of what we do, and it's also an important part of what they do daily to show what they've learned and to prove that they've reached, grade standard or region standard. Colleges like to see that as well. However, we very much understand if students do not take those exams. There are students who are home. If they wish to take the exam, they can contact our building level administrators and come in for it. There are students who may not be happy with their scores after taking the exam, and there are students who may not take the exam. But remember, in what we had said, we would encourage all of our students to take those exams, and all students enrolled in a course culminating in a Regents are eligible for the exemption to diploma requirements if they're passing the course. And I think that's as direct as we can be with helping people to understand the Regents diploma requirement exemptions. Again, we've done this last year where we have to file with the state. We file exemptions. Parents will receive declination notifications. So parents, they are informed that there's an exemption available, and they will be sent out through mail declination notification simply stating that if you wish to decline the exemption, it is your right to do so. So there is a lot that goes into this with decisions to be made and the management on the school side, but we will work through all of it. And once again, we would encourage our students to take those exams, but all students are eligible for the exemption. So the only other thing I wanted to mention, if there are no further questions with Regents, I am aware after some conversation with Terry Reynolds and a few others, there are some waiver requests on the Senate floor as it pertains to APPR. So, we await a decision there to see what that might look like and what that does for our end of year evaluations and how it relates to teacher tenure and the decisions that are made with the need for effective and highly effective ratings. So as we get that information, we will share that with you. And that is it for me this evening. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Need a motion? Judy and Tom? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Cheryl Gage, physical education teacher, effective July 1st, 2021. Ms. Gage has been with the district for 37 years. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Catherine Magid, physical education teacher, effective July 1st, 2021. Ms. Magid has been with the district for 20 years. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Carrie Rourke, teacher aide, effective April 15th, 2021. Ms. Rourke has been with the district for 18 years. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Darlene Ferraro, school secretary, effective July 1st, 2021. Ms. Ferraro has been with the district for 29 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Yeah. The board would like to thank the retirees for their dedicated service to our district. How many years, Tom? 104 years combined.
Wow.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is old business. I think we have a second reading and adoption of two policies. Policy 3225, public participation at board meetings, and policy 3520, extraordinary circumstances. Need a motion? Mike and Tom. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the second reading and adoption of policies Policy 3225, public participation at board meetings, and policy 3520, extraordinary circumstances. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Move to new business, 11.1. Need a motion to approve the minutes for the April 6th, 2021 meeting. Martha? Jeremy? I was waiting for you. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes for the April 6th, 2021 regular board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.2, we need a motion to approve independent internal audit report prepared by Cooper Arias LLP. Tom and Mike. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the independent internal audit report, agreed upon procedures, initial risk assessment update dated February 2021, prepared by Cooper Arias LLP. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? $11.3, approve the 12-month employee holiday calendar for 21-22. Judy? Jeremy? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the 12-month employee holiday calendar for the 2021-22 school year as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.4, need a motion to approve a budgetary transfer related to special education litigation. Mike and Tom. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the budgetary transfer dated April 12th, 2021, in the amount of $39,000 related to special education litigation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.5, need a motion to approve appointment of certain district official position. Jeremy? Tom? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education appoints Sarah Jabbar as a DASA designee at Goshen High School. There is no stipend for this position. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an addendum 11.6. Need a motion to approve supplemental memorandum of agreement with the GTA. Martha? Mike? Be resolved that the Board of Education hereby ratifies the provisions of the supplemental memorandum of agreement between the district and the Goshen Teachers Association dated April 6, 2021, and authorizes the funding of those monies necessary to implement the provisions of the one-year successor agreement effective July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. Said supplemental memorandum of agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was our last bargaining agreement for current year. And we thank the GTA for their good faith negotiations. Next on the agenda is the budget workshop.
Thank you.
Louise?
Thank you. Just wait for the presentation to load.
Hey.
Thank you, Maureen. So here we are, end of April, doing budget development, and it's kind of an interesting year, so I have some good news to share. Next slide, please. So we have a proposed budget this year of $78,811,376, which required by law, we have to call this a budget to budget increase. So that budget to budget increase is 3.58 over the current year's budget. As you can see from the graph in front of you, the pie chart, our budget is broken down, administrative, program, and capital. The largest portion of that pie is for the program component. That includes all instructional salaries, all instructional materials, equipment, computers, BOCES, and all ancillary teaching costs. Also includes the transportation to and from the schools. The administrative component is 10.16%. That includes central administration, legal, insurance, and other various types of overhead required to operate a school district. And then the green portion of the pie is the capital portion, and that's just over 12%. That includes the staffing and benefits of our buildings and grounds and maintenance departments, utilities, and any debt we have for any of our buildings. So the budget you have before you tonight, it's important for you to note that we've had a number of retirees this year. So it does include and reflect the salary savings due to 15 GTA retirees, but it does increase for health insurance because when a retiree leaves the district with their benefit plan, there's a plan for that retiree along with a new plan for the replacement person. Next, please. Revenues. This is a balanced budget, so obviously we have revenues amounting to the same dollar amount. It's interesting this year because our revenues certainly are slightly different than what we're accustomed to seeing. So taxes will be levied. We ran the tax cap formula. Now, as you know, in New York State, that's labeled as the 2% formula. There's a growth factor in there. There's adds and deducts for pilots and for capital exclusions. The interesting thing is this year, due to the amount of aid that we got, we are presenting a frozen levy. So while the tax cap formula allows us to go up 2.11%, we are leaving taxes flat. Now, it's too early for me to tell you what that will do with rates, but I can assume, because there's been some growth in Goshen, that the rates may even drop a little bit, but that will have a lot to do with equalization rates, the property values of our townships. So we'll know more about that soon, but we certainly don't expect any sizable increases there, and we're hopeful of some decreases. Most interesting part of the night here is our state aid. Initially, we were on the governor's proposal. We were allocated $18,138,572, and that number jumped up 2.6 million to the $20,762,000 almost. Mostly foundation aid increase. Now, we had been advocating to not combine those expense-driven aids, and fortunately that did not happen, and that worked to Goshen's benefit. So Goshen is slated to get 6.7 million over the next 2 years in foundation aid. That's not counting what we got this year. You may all know this, but I think it's worthwhile to explain this. For years, there's been a formula in the law that's been written, but it hasn't been funded because the state revenue hasn't been enough to fund that throughout the entire New York State law, the New York State districts. So I really want to be optimistic about this, and it's really exciting that we're getting that much aid, but I can't help but be concerned. How are we going to get that next 6.7 million over 22, 23, and 23, 24? Superintendent Connor and I made a little joke about there's some new revenue earning potential in this budget. As we know, marijuana is becoming legal and there's some gambling. But to me, that seems like it's an awful lot of aid that the state is going to need to create. So I think, and our fund balance, I know it was proposed that we are able to maintain more than 4% fund balance. That did not pass. Had that passed, maybe we would have had some flexibility there with setting some money aside so that we could use it in other years. But so I think we just have to keep our eye on that and really monitor that situation very closely. We don't have a lot of control because it's the state's money. Other sources of revenue that are noteworthy. Fund balance, we had appropriated about 980,000 over the last number of years, and we are reducing that number to a fixed 900,000. Our pilots are up by $250,000, up to $1,048,000. Again, that figure will continue to increase as the Legoland pilot continues to build. Other revenues are day tuition. You know, we bill Hamptonburg for students that are not Goshen residents, health and welfare interests, BOCES rent. There's some small other revenues. Now, what's not included here, and certainly is noteworthy, is the two federal types of aid that were guaranteed. One of those is American Rescue Plan. Now it was noted in the paper to be 2.1 million, but it is really closer to $2.8 million. And of that, we need to spend 20% on remediation. That may be summer school, it may be extended day program. Our administrative team is analyzing that. I heard some comments tonight, some public comments about some Read 180 and some other subscription-based programs. Those are certainly some things that we could use that level of funding for those types of things. And Mr. Carter, you may have some comments about that. But so we have some flexibility there. That money, because it's federal money, is accounted for in the special aid fund, which is not part of the general fund budget. It is not voter approved. That money, American Rescue Plan, I've spoken about, that $2.8 million, we have until September of 2024 to use that. We also have the CRRSA, 90% of ESSER. That's another $2.7 million that we had through September of 23. And while it sounds like a lot of money, and it really is, the guidance hasn't even come out yet exactly how we can spend that. So we'll continue to keep you informed, but it is not within the general fund budget. I think that's an important distinction to make. I don't know if there's any questions on that, Frank one. Okay.
Federal aid, I know we started the process of evaluating our standards, our position. One of the comments the reason I had talked about was maybe use some of that federal aid towards that, not our capital reserve money.
Formula out, Goshen had higher growth than most of the school districts in Orange County. So that's also a fact that the state sets that's indicative of that trend. So it's very promising, I agree. Any other questions?
That was a good point.
Very good point.
Jason. Has anyone actually contacted the assessors yet?
Yes.
Yes. And
Okay.
they're very kind and helpful, but non-committed.
Well, we know that, but
The date is July 1 and equalization is the end of August.
Right.
And we're really pressing them before it's due. So I would probably do exactly what they're doing, but I usually try and soften it up with a little sugar and try and get a
It's a good
pulse.
idea.
It was completely ineffective, but anyway,
That's called courting the assessors.
we tried.
What? Yeah.
I do think it's important to be noted, though, that given the pandemic and many people in our district who have suffered economically through either being furloughed or laid off or part-time from full-time, and maybe now just getting back, that I think being a zero levy and possible lower taxes is going to be a welcome sight for many people. So I'm glad as our Board of Education can do that with our administration team. I think it's very important for many people, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep going. School bus. So the propositions are on the ballot to continue with our school bus replacement plan, our fleet. It is 3 66-passenger buses, 4 30-passenger buses, and 1 Suburban. And while we want to be very responsive to the community, we've analyzed this year, and to halt that for a year, it just kind of kicks it down the road. So right now, our bus
Replacement schedule is aligned. It reduces the aid, and the net is what's funded by the taxpayers. So that is on the ballot. And then we have a board election coming up with 3 seats, and our current incumbents are all running along with 3 other candidates. So these are listed in alphabetical order because we don't draw the names until tomorrow. Martha Bogart, William Castellane, Joseph Connell, Judy Green, Shannon Johnson, and Jason Pucci. And fortunately, we're going to have a relatively normal election this year, in the sense of it won't be by paper ballot completely. So
No.
we anticipate, a much more normal vote, in the sense of it'll be a little bit more in person and similar to as in prior years. And another, what I thought was a very noteworthy fact, is when they came out with the contingency budget guidelines and the tax cap, I think it was 2012, the contingency budget formula was completely altered. So interestingly enough, if you fail a budget and you present a second budget, and you have to go to a contingency budget, let's say both of those budgets fail, what that contingency budget means is you can have as much expenditures as you need, but you can't increase taxes by $1. So oddly enough, this year, the budget that we're proposing is the same budget as a contingency budget would be. And I never thought I'd say that in my life, but so I also think it's valuable to explain that, so that people understand there would be no point in going to a second vote. I mean, and all of that is time and money. I mean, we've tried to be very frugal. We've put this budget together. As President Pucci said, we've been very aware of the times and the climate and, and everyone's concern. So I just thought it was an interesting fact. So obviously this is a budget that requires 50% support. And I mean, we hope that it's supported, but people will make their choice and when they go to the polls. And the times are there. We'll get all of this together for with Christina Gore and Maureen's help, certainly, into a newsletter. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
I think it's important that when we convey this to the public, the zero levy, obviously, and then I think it was some of those things that we added in there, like 5 o'clock run, things like that. So I know you and Christina Gore work up something nice.
Yes, we're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. A motion for 12.2 to adopt proposed 21-22 school year budget and property tax report card. Jeremy and Tom? We're gonna do a roll call on this morning? Okay. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education adopts the budget and property tax report card for the 2021-22 school year in the amount of $78,811,376. Judy,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
You say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I have my volume down. Allison's not here. Do I vote? Hold on, let me write my name in.
You have to.
Jason, yes. Okay, next, board member issues. Tom?
I have a question, probably from Mr. Carter. Obviously, our teachers are observed and evaluated. Is there anything that needs to be done for admins in that respect?
So our 4 building principals are observed using the MPPR. Mr. Connor actually meets with them to discuss multiple domains 6 times over the course of the year, each evaluated and rated. They also get scores usually based upon not only the scores assigned by Mr. Connor, but also due to state assessments and growth factors.
Are board members allowed to see those?
I'm going to get back to you on that,
Please do.
if you don't mind.
Thank you. And this has been consistently done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, since they started the whole process.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're gonna do a quick exec session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to
Yeah.
request that we go in exec
Make a
session.
motion.
Make a motion that we go in exec session.
Jeremy, second,
Second.
Jeremy and Tom. I need to just read something here. I got something. The board will go into executive session to discuss matters regarding particular employees with the intent not to return.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Yep.